Hello again, I'm Robert Fitton, and today I just want to talk to you about some vinyl finds that I've made recently. I haven't been buying a lot of records in the last year or so because, as I've said, I got that ultrasonic cleaner, so I've been cleaning a lot of my record collection and rediscovering a lot of the stuff I already had. But I made that Mother's Day video, and I mentioned going to garage sales with my mom when I was a kid, and it got me thinking, I wonder if people still have records at like garage sales and estate sales. And I was thinking probably not. You know, I always assume not, because I always think that people must have gotten rid of a lot of their records back in the 90s when a lot of us did with, getting CDs and stuff. But there were a few. You have to go to a lot. You have to look up the listings and make sure they have records. And then when you go there, sometimes it's hit and miss. But I did go to one in particular that had a box of records, bought the whole box, and it ended up averaging out to about $1.50 for each record, which was pretty incredible with stuff like this. The Allman Brothers band, Brothers and Sisters, from 1973. This is one of those albums I talked about in my earlier video where I was like, albums I'm ashamed I don't have on vinyl, but I have on CD. This is actually one of the first CDs I ever got back when I got my CD player for the first time. But yeah, Allman Brothers Band. This was the one that does not feature Dwayne Allman for the first time. He died tragically in that motorcycle accident. And then right after this, Barry Oakley, the bassist, died in a motorcycle accident like a few blocks away, basically. It's quite impressive that this band could go through all of that tragedy and still just keep on rocking on. And this is an incredible album, too. This is one of my favorite Allman Brothers. A lot of them are great, but this one especially. This has, of course, the big hit Ramblin' Man is on here. The beautiful instrumental Jessica is on here, Southbound, and Come and Go Blues. The album is just full of great tunes, front to back. The whole thing you can play. And the kid on the front here, I think that's Butch Trucks, the drummer. I think that's his little kid. I always wondered about this album cover where it's just a kid with a stick kind of looking down the ground. I don't know who took this picture and went, oh man, we got to make that an album cover. Got a little girl there on the back. That's another person's in the band's kid. But yeah, Allman Brothers Band, Brothers and Sisters. Tremendous album. I'm glad I finally got this on vinyl, and especially at like $1.60 or whatever it was. Jefferson Airplane, another album I talked about in an earlier video that I did not have. This is Flight Log. This came out in 1977. This is basically sort of it is a compilation, but it's not necessarily a greatest hits. What it is it's like the Jefferson Airplane and then all of the offshoots from like Yorma and Grace and all their Hot Tuna is on here a couple of times. So it's not just Jefferson Airplane. It really kind of is the whole spectrum of that band and all of its, like I said, all of its offshoots. Double album, and it comes with this great booklet in here as well. Full color thing here. Well, that's not full color, but some of it is. But a great booklet, a great thing to have like pre-internet days, especially these inner sleeves that have that showcase the albums that the tracks are off of. It looks like, just one track per album. Not necessarily the most popular track, not necessarily the best track, but it gives you kind of an overview of their whole universe, the Jefferson Airplane universe. So a great listen, especially record 1. Record 2 gives me some insight into some stuff I hadn't heard. I don't have the Grace Slick album Qual or whatever it's called. I don't have the Yorma album, whatever that one. Oh no, she does Manhole. I don't have that album. I don't have the Yorma album. But I'm surprised that the Bodacious DF album is not represented on here with Marty. But Sunflower has a track on here. The weird one about Silver Spoon, about eating stuff and forcing it all in your mouth. That's a great Slick song. But yeah, great listen overall. Jefferson Airplane Flight Log double album for $1.60. Bob Dylan's debut. I had actually never heard this before. I'm not the biggest Bob Dylan fan as far as his really early, like, folky stuff. I love the Bob Dylan that pretty much everybody loves. The Blonde on Blonde, Bringing It All Back Home, Highway 61 Revisited. I think those albums are genius. I love his smartass, take. I love his vocal. A lot of people don't like Bob Dylan's vocal. I think his vocal on those really goes well with the lyrics he's singing. It's got this kind of a snarky attitude to it. But this one, this is his debut where he's still pretending that he's the son of Woody Guthrie or something like that. Very folky. He's got a song on here called New York Talkin', which is talking blues about New York City. He sounds like somebody who's never been to New York City before, like a country boy visiting the big city. And it's obviously he's pretty much playing a character through most of these, but it's a nice listen. It does make you, it sounds authentic, even if it, kind of isn't. He's kind of the Greenwich Village guy, but yeah, Bob Dylan's debut. I think this is a 1965 pressing on the 2i label. It first came out on a 6i, but excellent condition on this, and yeah, great listen. Stereo version, and his vocals are all panned on one channel, the guitar's on another. So a mono is probably the way to go with that. But yeah, finally glad I got that. Jeff Beck didn't have this before either. This is a triumphant album. Jeff Beck and Truth, probably the best Jeff Beck album. Rod Stewart on vocals. But this is not Atlantic Crossing or Footloose and Fancy Free from Rod. This is not a disco album. This is a great guitar album, and of course Rod Stewart's in his prime as a vocalist, really belting it out. A lot of Yardbirds. There's a couple of Yardbirds, like Shape of Things and whatever on here. This is a first pressing too. There's a different producer layout, I guess, that they did after the first run, and this is the original. So great to have this on the, of course, on the yellow. The yellow, oh, well, you can't see it, but the yellow Epic label. So, yeah, again, $1.60. And it's in pretty good condition, too. Glad I finally got Jeff Beck Truth. This one I'd never had before either. And no, it's not an album with a white cover called Engler. This is what you have to watch out for a yard sale. Somebody decided to write their name, I'm assuming, in huge letters on this. What this is a Rolling Stones bootleg. It's the notorious one called Liver Than You'll Ever Be. I've heard of this for years, but I never actually heard it. And certainly didn't own it, but now I do. It's basically the Get Your Ya-Ya's Out era, that whole tour with the Gimme Shelter movie and all that. But it's a bootleg. It's directly from, just like sitting in the audience, just like you're there. Sound quality is bootleg sound quality, but this is popular for a reason. It sounds better than a lot of the bootlegs that were out at the time. And I don't know why I'm showing this. This is a white cover with, barely legible Liver Than You'll Ever Be there, but this big name on here really stands out. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. Maybe get some white out or just leave it like that and out of respect for Mr. Engler, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have this, or Mrs. or Miss Engler. But yeah, Liver Than You'll Ever Be from the Rolling Stones, or as they're known on the label, the greatest band on earth, because I guess they could not actually put the Rolling Stones on there anywhere. They'd put the Rolling Stones on here, though. Got this finally, $1.60. The 3D lenticular cover for their Satanic Majesties request. I have had this on CD since the 80s. It's definitely not my favorite Rolling Stones album. It's got some decent tracks on here. 2000 Light Years from Home. She's a Rainbow's great. But, it's not their best. It was pretty much panned not only by critics and fans, but by the Rolling Stones themselves when it was, later on in the years when they were talking about it. It's kind of been reevaluated in the last few years, especially when the 50th anniversary came out. People love this album now. Suddenly, it's a great album, but it was not great. It was not considered great, at the time of its release. It's basically just them goofing on the Sgt. Pepper thing and sort of almost a parody of psychedelic music with them looking like wizards there. But I love that 3D kind of lenticular cover. I'm glad I finally got this. This is the kind of thing you used to see in the 90s. In record stores, it would be one of the ones up on the wall, and I always wanted this, but never really wanted to pay that much for it, and I didn't, and I got it, so awesome. Their Satanic Majesties request. Record's in probably VG condition, but I really got this for the cover. Speaking of psychedelic, Ultimate Spinach. Behold and See. This is their second album. I thought their first album was pretty good, not awesome or anything, and this one's pretty similar. Side 2 is really where it's at with this, where it mellows out. They've got more kind of angelic choral, echoey voices going on in it. The music on here is pretty cool. Doesn't have that big organ sound. Has more of a mellotron kind of underscore going on in this one. But yeah, great tunes on here. The thing that ruins it, a lot of it though, is the elephant in the room. That was the same thing with the first one, is the vocals. It's got a guy vocalist, what is his name? Ian Bruce Douglas. It's got a female vocalist, and Barbara something, but they can't sing that well. That's the main problem here, is they can't really sing that well. I'm sorry. But if they would have just invested in a couple of vocalists that was their full thing, this would have been a great album. But the vocals on here are just kind of talky vocal or really over enunciated. There's no like kind of melody in their voice. There's really no kind of nuance or whatever. It's just right there, kind of screechy at times with, I think her name's Barbara Jean. But yeah, Ultimate Spinach, great name for a band, great song titles on here. But yeah, side 2 is where it's at, where they kind of let the music do more of the talking. But glad I finally was able to get that. And then, you pick up a box, you get some stuff in here like some jazz bullshit. Here's Monk, Thelonious Monk. Anybody know anything about this? I know it's an original with the black stereo written in black instead of white. So yeah, it's a first pressing of this. I think it might be worth something. I don't know. I don't know if I'll keep this or not. I'm not really into jazz. But yeah, Monk. Got that. Got this one. I've seen this cover a lot. I don't know how good this is. Getz and Gilberto. I think Gilberto recently passed away. But yeah, this is like a second pressing of this on Verve. It's the stereo one. That one's stereo as well. Yeah, I know I see this cover a lot. I think this is a big album with jazz people, but I'm probably going to get rid of that too. Again, that was like in the box, $1.60. Let's talk about something besides jazz. Let's talk about some real music, like Kiss. Rock and Roll Over. Now, you're probably thinking, come on, you didn't have Rock and Roll Over? Yeah, I've had Rock and Roll Over since I was like 7 years old. But this one, I didn't get this in a box. I got this from Riverbend Records in Godfrey. Lucky enough to see this in the store. This is kind of a collector's item for Kiss fans. This is the Rock and Roll Over that has the misprint on it. This is from the RCA Music Club. And if you'll notice, Paul Stanley looks like he's crying a blue tears. If you can see that. He's not actually crying blue tears. What that is a misprint. It's just that some of the blue from the Kiss somehow got dropped right there, and it just happens to be on his eye, or below his eye, so it looks like he's crying. But according to Paul Stanley and others, that is not supposed to be blue tears. But this is kind of hard to find. This is kind of, like I said, kind of a collector's item with Kiss people. And I'd always heard about the blue tear, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to actually own this. So glad I've got this from Riverbend Records. But yeah, Paul Stanley crying blue tears. Not really. On the front of Rock and Roll Over. And of course, this album is, the one that was right after. I think this is right after Destroyer. They go back in the studio, try to pop things up a little bit. They still got the lyrics about. There's three different songs where they're talking about a girl on her knees on this. But yeah, a little more poppy. They start going in that direction with this album. But yeah, Rock and Roll Over from Kiss with the blue tear. If you want to see more about me growing up with Kiss and all the Kiss stuff I had as a kid, I've got a video of that. Check that out. Just search like My Childhood with Kiss, I think I called it. Finally got a studio UFO album. I've had Strangers, but the live double album that's, basically a great way to introduce yourself to UFO. Now I have Lights Out in London. Not crazy about the vocalist, but the guitar, obviously, legendary. And so yeah, this is a big classic rock kind of album. Glad to finally have this. I'd never had this in any kind of iteration before. I never had the cassette or CD or anything like that. So finally got this. I think this was like $3. But yeah, Lights Out from UFO. And like I said, most of these are in great condition. That Ultimate Spinach looks like it's only been played a couple of times. The Bob Dylan debut is pretty minty as well. This one is in really good condition. But something you have to watch out with garage sales. Def Leppard, High and Dry. I was glad to see this in the box. Although this one wasn't in the box. I actually paid like $4 for this at a yard sale. Got it, made sure, let's check the record out. Let's make sure. Pulled the record out about that much. Okay, looks decent. Right. Should have pulled it out all the way. I don't know if it was just a coincidence that it was like this, or if they strategically put the record in with the big warp on the very inside so you couldn't see it unless you pulled it all the way out. Can you see that? That is warped, and that is after being put in a record flattener. It was really bad to begin with. It's got crinkle warp, and even after putting in the flat, it's pretty much unplayable for the first song and a half on both sides. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this. Maybe I'll keep it, and if I find High and Dry again, I'm being really careful with this. Like, come on, High and Dry again. Maybe with some ring wear on it, I'll switch out the covers. Make sure it's the same pressing. Got that little tick where it's always got to be perfect matchup. But yeah, High and Dry. At least I've got songs 2 through 5 on both sides that I can play if I ever want to. Finally got Steely Dan Gaucho. You know Steely Dan and my relationship with them. I've never heard this, still haven't heard it. I will listen to it at one point and give you my full review. But I was always afraid to listen to Steely Dan Gaucho. I really like their first 2 albums. The ones that follow that are pretty good too, but I do not like AJ at all. And yes, I call it AJ because I like to be pretension-free. I'm not into calling it Asia. It's AJ. And this is Gaucho, and I've never heard this because I heard that it sounded just like Asia, and I don't like that album. I don't like the jazz rock Steely Dan thing. I like much more of their Skunk Baxter rock and classic rock kind of sound with the first couple albums. But yeah, one day I'll listen to this and give my full review, but I'm glad I got this for like $1.60. I also got this, the Beach Boys. Yeah, the good albums have already been talked about. Now we're on to the Beach Boys. Surfer Girl. Not only does this have green sleeves, or Surfer Girl if you prefer that title, it also has the Surfer Moon. South Bay Surfer is on here. The Rocking Surfer. Surfer's Rule. So, you know, with titles like that, you can see why Brian Johnson is... you can see why Brian Wilson is considered such a genius. All those surfer songs in here. I love how these guys are nice enough to carry the one board for the one surfer that's actually in the band. There's one of these guys actually knew how to surf. I believe it's the drummer. But yeah, they're all carrying the board for him. How nice. Surfer Girl from the Beach Boys, the 70s pressing with the nice bright yellow label. I like the song Surfer Girl, though. I think that's a cool song, even though it's just about surfing, or a surfer girl. But yeah, the rest of these are, it's one song and then a bunch of filler. It also has a little deuce coupe on there, which is kind of silly. But I've saved the big one till last. I don't want you to get too jealous. Turn off the video if you're the jealous type, because this is another one of those albums that was in the box for $1.60. I was like, whoa! You never see these at garage sales or big box, box of records. You never see these. Neil Diamond's Greatest Hits, Volume 2. Still in the shrink wrap. Wow, I was blown away. Now, this does not have Sweet Caroline. This does not have Cherry Cherry. This doesn't have, Kentucky Woman or, any of those. It doesn't have Shiloh. It does have You Don't Bring Me Flowers, duet with Barbra Streisand. It does have September Morn, Beautiful Noise. Yesterday's songs. It has Love on the Rocks. Ain't no big surprise that that's on there. Neil Diamond's Greatest Hits, Volume 2. On Columbia, where all the great Neil Diamond is. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is what you got to watch out for when you're buying rummage sales, because like I said, it's kind of hit or miss. And, you go to garage sales, they just have that, we have records, and you go there, and it's Al Martino, and Andy Williams, and, Al Hurt, the Honey Horn, or 78s. We have records, and you go there, and it's 78s. So you do have to have a lot of patience. It does take some gas to drive around and get misfires all the time with stuff like that. I have been to a couple of garage sales where you go there, and they're trying to sell records for $35. Elvis Presley Pickwicks trying to sell those for $28. So you have to have some patience. You have to spend some money on some gas. But occasionally, you might just find cool stuff like Rolling Stones bootlegs for $3 and, Ultimate Spinach for $1.60 and great things like that. So, yeah, I'll be going to some more and hopefully some more great cheap vinyl finds. I mean, those prices are right. And I'm so glad I got the Blue Tear from Riverbend Records as well from Kiss. Got that in my collection in my Kiss weird weird stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Robert Fithen, and next, I swear the part 2 of the Psychedelic 69 thing is coming up in a few weeks. Stay tuned for that, and thanks again for watching.